Hello, she was a fairy, and welcome to another speed build. So, as you may have guessed from that perhaps cringy intro, but I thought it was funny, we are making a fairy house, or I'm going to call it a fairy sanctuary. Even though we do not have fairies in The Sims 4, I have no knowledge. I don't know how I could. But, I am sure that we will get them eventually, because it seems as though since The Sims 4 is going to be around for at least a couple of more years until The Sims 5 comes out, that we are probably going to get everything that we've had in previous iterations, I would assume, because we did get horses, which everyone kind of thought we would not get for The Sims 4, but here we are. Horse ranch is a thing. I have yet to get it, one day perhaps. But anyway, into the build. So you can see that I am going for this sort of like abandoned castle ruin up in the woods sort of thing. I built this on the Cordelia secret cottage lot in Henford-on-Bagley, the one that's up by the waterfall. And I did this thing where I put up a hill and put a building inside of the hill, which I imagine to be I don't know. I'm saying that the whole thing is kind of like castle ruins almost. And I think that it's almost like normal Sims created this castle, and it has since, over, who knows, hundreds of thousands of years, maybe not hundreds of thousands, but at least hundreds, sort of fallen into disrepair, and that this pair of fairies lives here now. Two of them I did make for this video. Of course, I just kind of dressed them up in fairies. One of them is in one of the witch costumes from Spooky Day stuff, and the other one is in a green outfit from maybe Paranormal, could be Crystal Creations, I don't know. But had a lot of fun with this one. It took me, I think, 2 or 3 hour chunks over 2 or 3-ish days. But you can see here that I'm sort of going in using a lot of those, it's like a mixture of cottage living and get together debug. So I use the castle pieces from Get Together, and then some of the wall bits from Cottage Living. And here you can see this is the entrance to the fairy sanctuary, which is actually underground. For the most part, there is a little bit of a tree house sort of section that I build coming off that big tree that I put next to the hill. But this is kind of a library, and then you can see here I'm putting in the entrance to the downstairs part. But I had this idea of a forest library that turned into this, into a fairy sanctuary. But I'm building this long basement tunnel. Here you can see where I'm trying to put the starts of the, what do you call it, the treehouse part. And I also had to replace some of these pieces because I did have the Sims on the lot originally, and then it got rid of my stuff because I moved them out and made them take the furniture with them, so it took all of my fun things. But the plants still stayed, so at least I knew where all of the pieces were. But I had to go actually download a mod because I was trying to take Sims here to test stuff as I placed it. And then because of the season that it was, all of my flowers were dead, and it made me sad. Which is why I took the Sims out of the lot in the first place. And then I came back and sort of installed a mod by the guy who does Carl's Sims guides that is called Seasons Tuner, I believe. So that way I could turn off the thing where the plants die, which was great. But here you can see I'm making everything look overgrown. I used a lot of different flowers, actually. Those blue hydrangeas are what I started with, and then I sort of branched off from there. and used a lot of cottage living debug. This is the cottage living world, and I also still to this day think that it's kind of the best debug stuff that we got for landscaping. But here's the beginnings of this like sort of like a basement courtyard. I used the fairy tree, or I guess it's called the mysterious tree from the base game, that like if you interact with it enough, it leads you to that Sylvan Glade secret world. I thought it would be a good thing to have in this fairy sanctuary. So my headcanon for this is that the fairies who live here, since we don't have real fairies in the game yet, might be like descendants of fairies from long ago, and so they no longer have wings. Like somehow along the line they have lost their wings, and they've sort of like lost a lot of their heritage. So I guess it's kind of a sad build story that I've created for this. But essentially, it's like there's only 2 of them left. And they live here, and they guard this fairy tree in the hopes that like one day they'll be able to figure out a way to, you know, keep the race going and maybe get their wings back one day. Downstairs, when I finally get to the inside, I actually did this thing where I put the Realm of Magic bassinet in there and decided that maybe they're going to get into a little mischief and they're going to try to steal a human baby, a changeling, except they're not going to exchange anything for it, in the hopes that maybe they can use it somehow with like whatever fairy power they have left to continue the fairy race and get their wings back through a little baby. Or maybe they're like going to find a way to like use modern science, because I know you can have science babies in The Sims 4 to like have a baby of their own. The 2 fairies that I made for this, I named them Philomena and Thistle, which I thought were kind of fun names. But here I'm going in and I'm decorating this sacred tree courtyard using a lot of the Romantic Garden stuff pack, and also the Castle Estate kit features pretty heavily in this. I use those columns everywhere to like add depth and dimension to the walls, and I put lots of overgrown plants from like vampires, as well as I think the flower ones are from Get Together also. I love the Get Together flowers, if that's what they're from. If they're not, whatever they are, I love them. And I used like those like wall fountains with the lions, which a friend of mine actually lives in an apartment complex here in Chicago that actually has one of those lion head fountains, although it's not nearly as like pretty and ornate as the ones that we have here in the game. But here is where I'm adding the like the living quarters for the fairy sims themselves. So essentially, I wanted to do this thing where I wanted a window in the basement, but I wanted to like look out into a pool, so it was like almost like it was underwater. So I have this tiny little pool that's only like 2 tiles across that I put, and then I end up covering it with plants. But I put it down here, and then eventually I ended up putting 2 of the aquarium objects in there and then sizing them down so that there could be little fishies swimming beyond the window. But here you can see where I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to cover up this pool, because I was like, I don't really want you to be able to see it up above ground. I just want it to be a thing underneath. So it's like all of this secret stuff is down underneath these ruins. Of course, it's not like super secret, because like you can see like the fairy tree coming up out of that hole that I put the ruin pieces around. But I like to think that it's maybe like kind of deep in the woods, and not a lot of people know that they're up here. So here I am going in and sort of kind of decorating the you can see I was decorating like the platform that goes around the treehouse section, where I ended up putting some plants and some benches eventually. But this is the bedroom that I'm working on now. I have got a little platform at the end, and I figured out you can, in fact, paint platforms, kind of, but you have to use platform trims. I finally learned. And here I am putting in like some beds. By some beds, I mean I was trying out beds, and then I decided I wanted like a green one, and then I put some spandrel across here, and I ended up hanging some curtains on the spandrels and putting in a hanging plant. And I think one side of the bed actually right now is not usable. I'm going to try to fix that before I upload to the gallery, but I ended up putting like some clutter stuff on one side that's really cute. And I feel like it's fine because Sims can scoot over if they really want to get to the other side of the bed. So hopefully they will do that. But here I am. I'm doing this thing, which I think I also might have done in the Shipwreck Witch House, the Coastal Witch House, where I took like that sort of Moroccan-looking table from, I don't even remember which pack, and I put another table inside of it because the Moroccan table has like a mirrored top. I didn't really want the mirrored top, but I wanted like the shape of the table. And here you can see I'm putting in some green curtains and putting like I used the tool mod to move the curtains away from the pillars because I wanted the pillars in the corner, but I didn't want the curtains to clip through them. But luckily they don't really get in the way. And then I used the little llama wall sculptures from the Castle Estate kit, and I ended up putting, I don't know if I put curtains on all of these. I think I did. I put green curtains, and then I ended up putting 2 bookshelves. And here you can see I'm playing with what kind of lights to use. I almost used the bug lights from Realm of Magic and decided against it because I wanted like more candle-y sort of lights, since I used a lot of candles in like that library room upstairs that leads to the ladder. And here I did this thing where I like flanked the doorway with the fairy gargoyle statues. So I like to think like maybe these are ancestors of the fairies that I have living here before they lost their wings. It's actually very sad the more I talk about it. I'm like, oh no, their wings. But I cluttered up this room a little bit and put like some flower objects in here. And one of the, I think it has to be from the Nifty Knitting Kit, that little yarn guy on the stump. I put him down there as well. And here you can see I had to lower the llama statues because they were coming up out of the ground. And here I'm sizing down the fish tanks. Before this goes on the gallery, because while I was playtesting and filming the cinematic stuff for the video, I did go ahead and have the Sims stock those with fish. And here I'm going in with the tool mod and sizing up a rug to fit under the bed. And then I did my favorite thing where I layer some rugs on top of other rugs. And I ended up putting the fairy familiar orb from Realm of Magic on this little trunk. And here's the bassinet for them to try to have their fairy baby. And now I'm cluttering up the lot itself, making it look more overgrown. I ended up using those debug. They're like swirly bits of grass that are from the Sylvan Glade area from the base game. And the description says, fairies, F-A-E-R-I-E-S, are attracted to this grass. So, I don't know. It's kind of like we have fairies, quote unquote, as like little orbs of light that kind of like flutter around in the Sylvan Glade area in the base game. So maybe the Sims team does think we're going to get them eventually. If not, here's a fun little pretend place that maybe I will actually use for real fairies if we ever get them. But this was a really fun one to do because the last couple builds I've made were like kind of more quickies, but this one I wanted to really take my time and like add the details and that fantasy element to the game and to the build itself. And I think, I put some more fairy stuff down here. I might end up having to go and take some more screenshots after I get done recording this voiceover, because I've got a couple. I've got like a good view of the outside, and I've got like a pretty decent screenshot of like the fairy courtyard with the tree. But here is the kitchen. Because, of course, after I worked on all the other stuff, I was like, they need a kitchen and a bathroom, otherwise this won't be functional. So here's the fairy kitchen. I ended up using those movie hangout lights and, like, clustering them in groups above the table and sort of set the table at an angle, so it's got that sort of imperfect element. And I ended up using a lot of stuff that I typically use in my more fantasy builds, those herb racks from Realm of Magic and from Laundry Day, I think. And then I ended up eventually putting in the garlic wall decorations from vampires, because I feel like obviously they forage while they cook. In order to cook, they forage to cook what they need. And here I am filling up the walls. I used a lot of wreaths, and I ended up using one of like the scratched paintings from vampires. No, maybe from werewolves, because I imagine that fairies, if we ever get them, but at least these 2 pretend fairies that I've made, don't care for the vampires very much. Maybe the vampires are the reason why these 2 fairies are the last that are left, and why they are so lonely and have no wings. But anyway, I'm going in, cluttering up the wall. There's the vampire picture that's all scratched over. And I ended up putting in like a map. I think 2 maps, because I forgot there was like a map object from Pets for like the Brindleton Bay stuff. And I put in some clutter. I put in a sink. And I made sure that I think 2 of these counters are usable. One does have some clutter on it, but thankfully it's not enough clutter to where your Sims can't cook. And then I put some candles about the place and a few other things like a globe and some little pillows. Just try to make it like sort of cozy and like collected. Because I imagine that these fairies go around and collect things in town and bring them back. And they kind of want to be secret. But I imagine they don't do a super great job, because the one, as you might be able to see when I put up the cinematic stuff, is she's got like face paint. That's pretty not normal. I mean, it's from vampires, but meh. Here I am putting in the bathroom, and I didn't do an underwater window. I did like an underground garden outside the window for this one. Really easy, just like those like wall rose objects from Romantic Garden. And then we're kind of wrapping up the build, guys. This is the last of the clutter. There's a few things I add off camera, but we are going to go ahead and move into the little video tour snippets and the screenshots. Thanks for catching this one, and I appreciate you. Go be a fairy.